Hey guys, Erin here. I am back with another moon update for you. Today I'm going to be talking about the new moon we have coming up here on Sunday, August 4th. This new moon peaks at 4:13 a.m. Pacific time and takes place in the sign of Leo, 12 degrees Leo. Definitely one of my favorite signs of the zodiac, and you will see why. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about in this recording is how to work with this energy. How can we receive the best benefits from this kind of transit? Really, anytime we have a new moon, it is a time to manifest new beginnings or growth that's related to that zodiac sign. Okay, now this is something I have been doing for so many years now, and I kid you not, I still to this day can't believe what I'm able to manifest into my life by working with these lunar cycles. What's going to happen is about 6 months from now, we'll have a full moon in the sign of Leo. That's the peak of the growth cycle. So if we sit down and we write down what it is we want to experience, some kind of growth or new beginning that's related to this sign of Leo, that's like rule number one for bringing our hopes and wishes into fruition. Of course, we have to take action on these things as well. But that's how I've been doing this for so many years. And that's why I like to teach you guys how to do this stuff. Okay. So the sign of Leo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the sign of Leo for you in detail, so you really know what you're working with here. I'm also going to be pulling up the chart and showing you some other prominent astrological forces we are receiving at the time of this new moon. Really interesting stuff. Okay. And then I will also be talking about certain parts of the body that are ruled by the sign of Leo, because these parts of our body become more sensitive really anytime anything up in the sky transits through the sign of Leo. But it tends to be a little more prominent when it's a new or a full moon in the sign of Leo. So it's definitely a good idea to pay a little extra attention to these parts of our body during this kind of transit. So of course, I will be mentioning some potential herbal remedies to help support these parts of our body. I'm just going to put this out right now. Leo rules the heart. Very, very important part of the body. So we're going to talk about some things that we can help support our heart with. And I'll also be talking about gemstones that resonate well with the sign of Leo. Now, for myself, what I like to do, I've been collecting gemstones for a very, very long time now. So what I like to do is take a few gemstones that resonate well with the sign the moon is transiting through and put them on top of my journal after I've written out, the growth that I'm trying to manifest. It's related to that zodiac sign. Okay, and if you are somewhat familiar with your natal chart, or if you've had a reading with me, you can go back and review the video recording to see how this is specifically manifesting for you, okay? Because we all experience this new moon at 12 degrees Leo using Western astrology, but it's also incredibly unique for each and every one of us. First of all, do you have anything in your natal chart near 12 degrees Leo, or maybe opposing that near 12 degrees Aquarius, or maybe trining it near 12 degrees Aries or Sagittarius? There's so much that can be seen in the natal chart. But moreover, if you can look to see which house in your natal chart the sign of Leo comes through, if you're using Placidus or Equal House, you need to see exactly where 12 degrees Leo, I think it's 12 degrees 34 minutes, comes through in your natal chart. If you're using the whole sign house system, which is what I like to use for these lunar transits, look to see just which house in your natal chart the sign of Leo comes through. It's got to be coming through somewhere. Even if you don't have any planets in the sign of Leo, the sign of Leo still comes through somewhere. Some area of your life, whether it be physical health or career or money or relationships or karma or communication or transformation, it's got to be coming through somewhere. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to get rolling with this. This sign of Leo, this is what we call the fixed fire sign. When I say fixed, I'm talking about an ability to do things in a steadfast way. Okay, all the fixed signs are kind of recognized for their ability to start, if they're going after a goal, they set the goal and they stick with it with consistency. They're not flip-flopping all over the place. Okay. And in the element of fire, fire is all about energy. Okay. It's a very energetic zodiac sign. It's ruled by the sun. The sun is clearly the brightest light in the sky. Okay. Sign of Leo tends to be kind of the brightest light wherever it goes. And he doesn't mind me mentioning these things. So I'm going to throw it out there. Like my father, his sun is in Leo. He's a Leo rising. He's got Mercury in Leo. Pluto's in Leo. Okay, so he's like the most typical Leo person you could imagine. He's big. He's always worn a cowboy hat. What I mean by big is he's super tall. He's 6'4", and he's always like, "How's it going, everybody?" He's very, very playful. And when we think about that energy that we receive from the sun, when I say playful, I mean, courageous and playful. That's really what we receive from the sun. Okay. Not only that, but okay, the motto for the sign of Leo is I will. This is about willpower. Okay. Saying maybe that's one area, or maybe that's something you want to manifest into your life is more willpower to stick with something. Honestly, the word courage feels really important to me because I've had quite a few people say to me over the years, Erin, I admire your courage. And to me, my Saturn's Leo. Don't really think about myself as courageous. To myself, I'm kind of more, what's the word? I just kind of say, screw it. Let's just see what happens. Let's do this, what we're going to do. But I understand that a lot of people really want to manifest more courage into their life in any aspect of your life, any area of your life. This is an excellent time to do that. Okay. That willpower to help you push through things. Okay. Now it's represented by the lion that is totally courageous and totally playful. Okay, this is when we think about that, the lion energy, it's like the king or the queen of the jungle, right? Which is that's the Leo energy. It's the king or the queen of the zodiac. It's the sign of royalty being ruled by the sun. And by the way, I'm not suggesting by any means that just because somebody's sun is in Leo, that they're going to have all these qualities. I actually know quite a few Leos who were born with Saturn right next to their sun, and Saturn restricts some of that Leo energy. So by no means am I suggesting that every single person who's a Leo is super courageous and playful and that sort of thing. There's so much more to the natal chart. But the sign of Leo in and of itself is that very courageous and playful energy. I know some people will find themselves getting a little irritated by the sign of Leo because Leo can sometimes, it's always the front man. There's a lot of lead singers of bands who are Leos, people who just some of them don't mind getting attention. Some of them crave the attention. Okay. So with that said, how do you want to grow in these ways? You don't have to have any planets in the sign of Leo to bring this energy through and manifest this courage and playfulness. I mean, how many people need to bring more joy into their life, like actually enjoy life? This is such a good time to do that. The sign of Leo is also very, very creative. Okay. It's, entrepreneurships, getting creative within any area of the life. How do you want to grow in these ways related to this sign of Leo? Okay, so there's that. I hope I gave you guys a good idea. And this is why I love that sign of Leo so much. I always thought it was interesting that my Saturn is in Leo, which Saturn kind of can make things a little more rigid, that sort of thing. Sometimes we'll have to learn really hard lessons through whatever sign our Saturn is in. But I just, for some reason, maybe it's just because, like I said, my father is just such a perfect example of this. He's very courageous and very playful. And so that's something that I really enjoy about this energy. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up the chart here. So for those of you who are brand new here, what I work with is called geocentric Western astrology. And with that said, what we're looking at here is what we would call a snapshot of the tropical zodiac at the time of this new moon. Okay, now geocentric, that means we put Earth right here in the middle of this thing. These right here, these are the symbols for the planets and the celestial bodies. Okay, when we go in the wheel just a little ways, these are the symbols for the zodiac signs that all these things will be beaming through onto Earth at the time of this new moon. Okay, so let's start out with talking about the sun and the moon. This right here is the sun, this right here is the moon. And this is what happens anytime we have a new moon. It means the sun and the moon are in the exact same sign of the zodiac, in the same degree and in the same sign of the zodiac. And the moon is the mother, the sun is the father. They're coming together to create this new energy. They're making a baby that we all get to grow with over these next 6 months till we have that full moon in the sign of Leo. Okay, now at 12 degrees Leo, this puts us in something called the second decan of that Leo energy, which actually gives it a little twist of Sagittarius energy too, which Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign. It's a little more adaptable. So there's a little more adaptability coming through than that just straight up fixed Leo energy. But still, this is I think about this as so many people out there will set a goal and go after it. I know I did this for so many years of my life. Set a goal. I got a lot of mutable energy in my own natal chart. set a goal and start to go after it, but then get sidetracked. Oh, wait, that looks a little more interesting that way. Oh, wait, no, well, that looks a little more interesting that way. Oh, I know a lot of people can deal with that sort of thing. So when we set the intention to stick with a goal, when we have a new moon in the fixed fire sign, chances are that, we write this stuff down, and obviously we need to take action with it. You put those two things together, writing it down and taking action, you'll find yourself very impressed with what you can bring into your life. Okay, now, the strongest aspect, it's probably the strongest aspect that's standing out to me, is we see these green lines that are going from here to here. This right here is Mars, and this right here is Jupiter. Okay, these green lines, it's almost like the sun and the moon are sending opportunistic rays towards Mars and Jupiter. Okay, so let's break this down. So Mars influences our physical drive. Okay, in medical astrology, Mars actually rules over our muscles and our adrenal glands. Mars is what makes us take action. All right, now this is the sign of Gemini, which Mars, I think gets a little frustrated in the sign of Gemini because really it's a lovely energy. All my friends who have Mars and Gemini are super excitable people. I've got a sibling with Mars and Gemini as well. It's just always gotta go do this, gotta go do that, because the sign of Gemini is almost kind of like whimsical, but it really is the sign of duality. I mean, we'll get into this as well. It's a sign of communication. That's kind of where I want to go with this. But it is the sign of duality that's a mutable sign. That is a sign that would be like, oh, I'm going this way. Oh, wait, what's over there? Oh, wait, what's over there? And Mars really, I mean, if you look at the glyph for Mars, it's because Mars wants to penetrate. Mars wants to go fast and furious and penetrate. And the sign of Gemini just doesn't really like that. But regardless, when you think, not even getting into Jupiter yet, when you think about this, the sun and the moon in the sign of Leo sending opportunistic rays to Mars, who wants us to take action, that is great. And so the sign of Gemini it really is the sign of communication. Now, I'm not necessarily just talking about verbal talking. It could be, written communication, even body language, like, a lot of people talk with their hands, like myself. That's very Gemini energy. Okay. And so maybe there's something that you've been wanting to talk about. Maybe there's something you've been wanting to say. There's been something that you've been wanting to communicate. And again, this could even be written communication. Maybe you've been trying to author a book, or maybe you've been trying to start up, say, like a new website or something like that, where you're getting a message out to people. This can support that kind of direction you want to go with any kind of communication, really. Now, this right here is Jupiter, okay? And Jupiter is like the great expander, okay? Jupiter, anything Jupiter touches, he's going to expand it. Jupiter is the great benefic. Jupiter is the bringer of luck and abundance and wisdom and philosophy. Okay, so here we've got Jupiter fairly close to Mars. In fact, what's going to happen here is about 9 days after this new moon, Mars and Jupiter will be in the exact same spot. They are going to have to be at 16 degrees Gemini. Look to see if you've got anything in your natal chart, say between 15 and 17 degrees Gemini. If so, that there's whatever that is, it's getting lit up. It's getting lit up because Mars and Gemini are coming together. So again, it's like if we think about Mars, go, 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 but in the sign of Gemini, and then Jupiter comes up, or really Mars goes up to Jupiter, and Jupiter goes boom and makes that Mars energy even bigger. Okay. So with all that said, in fact, what's going to happen here, it's the moon will have made an exact sextile to Mars maybe a few hours before this. Well, I don't want to get into too many details here and hold up the recording, but overall, this is a very opportunistic connection going on between the new moon, the influence of potential for new beginnings is making an opportunistic connection with Mars and Jupiter in the sign of communication. Sign of communication can also have a lot to do with mental function. Okay. Okay, so I hope that made sense. Now, let's see. The next thing I want to point out, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go next. Okay, yeah, let's let's go down here to Mercury real quick. Okay, so Mercury is ruler of Gemini. As I just talked about, Gemini being has influence on mental function and is the sign of communication. Well, that's because it's ruled by Mercury. Now, I don't mean to confuse anybody here, but Mercury is also the ruler of Virgo, and that Mercury is in the sign of Virgo for this new moon. That said, Mercury's in one of his own homes. Okay, he likes to be here. This is about sign of Virgo is very much about paying attention to detail. It's very much about can also have a lot to do with physical health or just overall purification, but it really also has a lot to do with keeping things organized, keeping things tidy. Okay, and Mercury coming through here, Mercury's just very, very happy at the time of it. And not only that, but Mercury is also going really, really slow at the time of this new moon, which can help with concentration. Okay, but what's going to happen here is just hours. It's, let's see, probably about, I'm going to say, well, this is the new moon's at 4:13 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to say probably by like 8 or 9 p.m. Pacific time, Mercury's going to go retrograde. That's why I'm saying Mercury's going so slow that just before Mercury goes into retrograde, Mercury slows down. When people are born with a Mercury that's going slowly, they have a really good tendency to focus and concentrate really hard. So Mercury's in a really good spot for this new moon. However, again, just hours after this new moon, then Mercury's going to retrograde and go back into the sign of Leo. I think it'll be there for a couple of weeks. But with that said, we've got a lot of Leo energy going on. Okay, so there's that. I don't want to go into too much detail here. Next thing I want to focus on is this right here. And by the way, actually, let me digress for a minute here. Talking about Mercury retrograde, you know, a lot of people will get all hyped up about Mercury going retrograde. And sure, Mercury being the ruler of communication, being the ruler of mental function, being the ruler of our nervous system and medical astrology, Mercury has a huge influence on our entire nervous system. And so with that said, when Mercury does go retrograde, of course, those things can get a little wacky. Not necessarily the greatest time for an important business meeting or you know, sending off that letter to, you know, some corporate thing or, you know, something that feels really important that involves some sort of communication. Not necessarily the most ideal time during Mercury retrograde. But for some people, it really doesn't seem to make a difference. For some people, I would say probably for Virgo and Gemini risings, Mercury retrograde might be a little more, create some sort of like frazzled energy, that sort of thing. But for the most part, I don't put too much emphasis on Mercury retrograde. Okay, so there's that. But at the, really on the, if you were to say you are trying to communicate something to somebody or have that certain phone call that involves something important, if you were to do it literally like just at the time of this new moon, I would say anytime, you know, within 4 hours, maybe even 5 hours, between the time of this new moon and 4 or 5 hours after the new moon peaks. Okay, so I hope that made sense because Mercury does do very, very well in the sign of Virgo. Okay, let's go here to Venus. So Venus, influencer of love and beauty and harmony and anything that's, you know, artistic. Venus rules over things like makeup. Venus influences love. Venus is about what we're attracted to. She wants things to, Venus basically, she's kind of like a remedy for everything. Maybe not everything, but a lot of things Venus can remedy. Venus's energy is one that we all can appreciate, okay? Especially if you're somebody who loves love. Okay, so, but Venus is kind of in trouble for this new moon. Not for very long, but at the time of this new moon, Venus is a little bit in trouble. First of all, I love Venus in Leo. She's in the sign of Leo. I've loved Venus going through the sign of Leo. When you think about that courageous and playful sign of Leo, and then you think about the influencer of love going through that zodiac sign, I love that. But she's at the 29th degree, which is the very, very last degree. I mean, it must be, oh boy, probably just a few hours after this new moon that Venus will move into the sign of Virgo. But so she's at the 29th degree, which is a little bit of a tricky degree. Doesn't always mean bad things. It can be a little bit of a trouble spot when things are at 29 degrees. Certainly not always. I don't want to scare anybody if you got something at 29 degrees in your natal chart. Doesn't necessarily mean bad things. Sometimes it can be though. Okay, now the troublesome energy coming through here is we've got a quincunx or an inconjunct. That's what these brown lines are here. They're approximately 150-degree angle. In fact, one of them is pretty close to exact. Those inconjunct aspects are kind of like a blind spot. It basically, okay, so this right here is Neptune, which is going through Pisces, and this right here is Pluto, which is going through Aquarius for a little bit longer until Neptune's actually in retrograde. It's going to go back into Capricorn very soon here. But for this new moon, Pluto and Neptune are making this inconjunct. They're both making an inconjunct. They're not able to connect with Venus. It's like they're not, the rays can't quite hit each other, okay? Now, Neptune influences mysticism and spiritual, especially coming through the sign of Pisces, you know, and in fact, Neptune going through Pisces could potentially influence some romantic energy because it's just a lovely energy. Can be a little bit, it's the opposite of earthly, okay? Neptune going through the sign of Pisces is very spiritual, very mystical, very metaphysical. A lot of, you know, people's intuitions are being heightened and that sort of thing. And with that said, it can be a little, Pisces in and of itself can be a romantic energy. But there's this in conjunct over to Venus, and then Pluto, which has a massive influence on the psyche. It's like both Neptune and Pluto, they're not considered personal planets, but they're more generational, but they have an influence on parts of us that are more you know, not necessarily the physical body. It's more like the psyche and the spiritual side of life and that sort of thing. And they can't find Venus. So with that said, I mean, but here's Neptune, here's Pluto. They're actually making this sextile aspect together for quite some time. That using this software, which by the way, I'm using a software called Time Passages. It's just my favorite software to use. But this, when we're using this software, Time Passages, anytime we see these green lines, it is a sextile, and it basically is trying to introduce some sort of opportunity. Okay, so it's a very generalized statement, but for the most part, hopefully you guys are able to follow along there. So when we get these sextile aspect, when we have Pluto and Neptune actually getting along together, okay, they're trying to create opportunities for, you know, opening up your pineal gland and going into, you know, altered states of consciousness without even using, you know, some sort of a substance to induce it. They're like Neptune's, you know, kind of almost like an opiate kind of high or something like that. And then Pluto's more like, oh, like the going deep into the psyche, stuff like shadow work and that sort of thing. And these guys are actually making this very opportunistic connection together for quite some time. That could be great for some people, especially if you're on some kind of a spiritual journey. But at the time of this new moon, they can't find Venus. And so Venus is a little bit in trouble here. If you've got something near 29 degrees Leo in your natal chart, that might be a little bit of a trouble spot. You know, and in fact, this just came into my mind. Mr. Donald Trump's rising sign is at 29 degrees Leo. That's interesting. Ooh, okay. Now, there's that. Now let's go up to Uranus, who's working alone for this new moon. I mean, well, Uranus is making some connections to things, but here's Uranus, which influences abrupt and strange changes. Spasmodic energy comes through. Uranus disrupts the electric field, the electromagnetic field, that disrupts things that are of an electrical nature. Okay, that's Uranus's influence going through the sign of Taurus since 2018, basically. Taurus is the sign that doesn't want that kind of going on. Taurus does not want to be getting zapped at all. Taurus is the fixed, stable earth sign. Okay, earth is, you know, the most dense and stable element. Okay, so we've got this thing that's kind of electrocuting that sign of Taurus. Again, it has been since 2018. But we had Jupiter go, we had all kinds of crazy stuff going on with Uranus, and he's kind of working a little more independently for this new moon, but still creating very, very interesting stuff. Let's see here. So Uranus is going to be making a square over to Venus, which, but yeah, Venus is kind of getting picked on, man. Ooh, okay. Actually, that's a fading square. I'm not even going to put emphasis on that, but I will just go back to Venus kind of being a little bit of trouble. If you have anything in your natal chart and you're 26 degrees Taurus, that thing might be getting zapped by Uranus. Okay, now let's move on to, let's go over this, guys. Okay, so Saturn going through the sign of Pisces in retrograde. Saturn is rigid. Saturn is what creates discipline and responsibilities. And Pisces, again, is this mystical, flowy, kind of metaphysical kind of energy. Matthew Woods has a book. What is it? It is, oh boy. Oh, maybe it'll come to me. In fact, it's right behind me. Maybe I'll even try to find it. It is the extracellular matrix. And that's a very Piscean influence, like the beyond the physical realm. Okay. And Saturn is the ruler of the physical realm. Saturn going through Pisces is a very, very interesting transit that's going on until basically March of 2026. The very end of February of 2026 is Saturn going through Pisces. Okay. So with that said, I don't know, the way I like to think about this is that Saturn might be bringing a little bit of stability to this very flowy Piscean energy, but it definitely for some people could be, showing you the sorrows of the world. If you have anything near 18 degrees Pisces, just realize you've got old Mr. Rigid sitting on that thing. I think I mentioned this before that I have a dear friend whose sun is either 18 or 19 degrees Pisces. And she said as soon as Saturn came back in retrograde over her sun, she felt like everything was being taken away from her. And that can happen with a Saturn transit. That doesn't mean that's happening, just so in case you are really new here, that doesn't mean that's happening for all of us. It really just depends on your own natal chart. If you have anything near 18 degrees Pisces, if it's Mercury, Mercury might actually enjoy this kind of transit. You might be able to concentrate on your spiritual practices. Okay, so there's that. And we talked about Neptune, so we're already done with that. We talked about Pluto. Let's just briefly touch on Pluto. So Pluto's also going through retrograde, which is so close to get back into that sign of Capricorn. This is going to be really, really interesting, you guys, because this year of 2024 is very interesting in and of itself, even if we take away astrology. Anytime there's an election, things get weird, right? But it's even weirder when Pluto, the ruler of our psyche and powerful transformation, and Pluto is the ruler of the underworld, and he's going to be bouncing back, which he's been doing for like 2 years now. He went through the sign of Capricorn, then entered into Aquarius. Now he's retrograding back into Capricorn, then he's going to move forward again. And if you remember, I was talking about the 29th degree here with Venus and Leo. The 29th degree is the anaretic degree. And Pluto is a rough energy. Okay. And not only that, but 0 degrees is also a very, very strong, it's like the purest, most powerful form of whatever that zodiac sign is. And when we talk about Aquarius, Aquarius is like the sign of the people. Aquarius is the rebel of the zodiac. Aquarius is the sign that doesn't want authority. Aquarius wants to be a little bit more of the humanitarian, more of the people for the people kind of energy we receive through the sign of Aquarius. And then Capricorn is quite different than that. Capricorn is really like the sign of authority and government. It's the boss of the zodiac. So here we've got the bringer of powerful transformation, tick-tocking back and forth between these two signs. The sign that really kind of is strongly associated with government and the sign that is associated with not wanting government, okay? So it's really, really interesting times here. It's a good idea to keep a little eye on Pluto. Not only that, but if you have anything in your natal chart around 29 degrees Capricorn or 0 degrees Aquarius, just realize this is a very powerful transit that you are experiencing. Okay, so let's also talk about Chiron, then we'll do the nodes and we'll head out of here. Okay, so Chiron, the wounded healer or the wounded warrior. Okay, Chiron influences wounds from early childhood, And in fact, I'm just going to say this as well, that it's like with Chiron, what is it? The Magi Society was talking about how Chiron may also have something to do with marriage. I haven't seen that so much, but when we talk about Chiron, it's like when we're having a heavy Chiron transit, from what I have seen, it really can bring up wounds from early childhood, something that happened from your early childhood development. And all of a sudden you're having some kind of a Chiron transit, maybe squaring your sun or something like that. Okay. Then all of a sudden this thing that you have forgotten about, since you were a child comes back up, and it has a lot to do with healing those things, has a lot to do with healing our childhood trauma, amongst many other things. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Chiron's going through the sign of Aries for, I think, another year and a half. And that sign of Aries, it really is the warrior of the zodiac. The sign of Aries is, when we talk about the sign of Leo being the leader of the zodiac, Aries and Leo are brother signs, okay? The different, like Leo is just a little more playful. It's ruled by the sun. Mars is more aggressive. It's ruled by Mars, okay? But they're both fiery and they're both very courageous. But Aries, it's the first sign of the zodiac. It's a sign of self. So especially if you've got something near 23 degrees Aries, or maybe opposing that near 23 degrees Libra, or maybe trining that near 23 degrees Leo or Sagittarius, or maybe squaring it near 23 degrees Cancer, or maybe 23 degrees Capricorn, something along those lines. You might be experiencing something like that. I don't normally put this much emphasis on Chiron, but I had just had a conversation with a few people very shortly before I started making this video. We had a conversation about Chiron. Okay, now, moving forward, let's talk about these nodes. Okay, so here's the North Node. Here's the South Node. Hopefully you guys are familiar with this stuff at this point. The North Node, this is what pumps energy in to Earth. The South Node is what drains energy away from Earth, okay? Now, these nodes are very, very important to understand. They're very, very powerful. They are what make eclipses happen. They are said to rule over the journey of our soul from lifetime to lifetime. Okay, so here we've got the North Node pumping that Aries energy in, 8 degrees Aries, pumping it in, saying, hey, let's go after this. Gosh, if you've got something near 12 degrees Leo in your chart and you have something near 8 degrees Aries in your chart, this new moon is like, let's go. Let's do this. Let's embrace that courage. Let's go after it. Okay, because Aries is, again, the warrior of the zodiac. And then down here, we've got the South Node in the sign of Libra. And as I've mentioned so many times, I don't like it there. I don't like it there because Libra is a sign of balance and fairness and justice and harmony and relationships. Okay. And the drain point, the South Node, is going through the sign of Libra. All of these guys, the nodes are going, North Node is going through Aries and South Node is going through Libra all the way until January of 2025. I find it very, very interesting that we've got the South Node. We're going to have eclipses on that South Node just before the elections. Okay, so this is the sign of justice. We got the drain point going through there. So this is very fascinating. Overall, just a totally fascinating year. Okay, is there anything else you want to point out here? I'll just quickly point this out. Again, going back to Mars, going to that sign of Gemini can be a fun energy, can be a whimsical energy, depends on how it's in your chart, but is making a very, very, very strong, harmonious connection down here to the South Node and making a very opportunistic connection up here to the North Node. Okay, so Mars, when we think about the direction we're going in, okay, that North Node pumping energy into us, this can have a lot to do with thinking about the South Node being the drain point, flushing things out. Let's say you've got a relationship of sorts that isn't so great. South Node going through Libra, flush that out, flush it out. Some sort of toxicity in your life, flush it out. Because Mars, ready to go, revved up. Again, if we look at his glyph, he wants to penetrate. He's sending these, harmonious rays down to this drain point. Especially if you've got anything near 8 degrees Libra in your chart, Mars can help flush things out that are just not serving you, but also bring that warrior energy in, especially since Mars rules Aries and this sextile aspect is going on between the North Node in Aries and Mars in Gemini. Okay, that was probably a little bit of complication, but hopefully you guys were able to follow along this enough. So let's talk about body parts. So the sign of Leo rules the heart. Okay, clearly a very important part of the body. Also rules the spine, especially like right behind the heart, the back right behind the heart. And it also has a strange influence on the gallbladder. So overall, it's just a good idea to be a little bit extra mindful with these parts of our body. You know, say certain yoga poses or that sort of thing. Opening up the heart chakra, that sort of thing was a wonderful time for this. This is a wonderful time for that, for opening up that heart chakra. Now, when it comes to supporting the heart, personally, I really like hawthorn. Hawthorn is probably like the number one go-to herb for the heart. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not trying to offer any kind of medical advice whatsoever. I'm just telling you guys stuff that I have learned from my wonderful teachers over the years and experienced for myself. And so, and not just for myself, with family members and helping them out and that sort of thing, and seeing the benefits that we can receive from this. But always a good idea to check in with your healthcare practitioner. Okay, hawthorn. Kind of relax the arteries of the heart. Could do a lot more than that, but that's, I think, the main function that can help the heart stay strong. And then also motherwort. Motherwort is more like relaxes the whole cardiac system. Of course, you don't have to be careful with this stuff. Again, you might want to check in with your healthcare practitioner, especially if you already have heart condition. You might want to be really, really careful, you know, dabbling around with things. Okay, and then also CoQ10 is a fantastic supplement for supporting the heart. When it comes to, I wish I would have grabbed my bottle. There's a company that I've bought many things from because I love their stuff. It's called Global Healing. If you're familiar with Dr. Group, it's his company. Global Healing CoQ10, and it's also mixed, and they got a little bit of Shilajit in there. I think it's Himalayan Shilajit, and I can't remember. It's got something else in there. But this supplement, in fact, I'll leave a link for it. If you're curious about this stuff, I'll leave a link for it where you can get it in the description. I'm not affiliated with those people. I just, I really like Global Healing's products. Okay, so I will leave that in the description below. Okay, gemstones. So the dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Leo is a ruby. So I got my, in fact, I wear a ruby all the time. I wear this ruby almost every single day. It was from my grandmother, my mother's mother. And of course, that brings an extra special connection with it. But particularly for myself, because my Saturn, old Mr. Rigid Saturn, cold and restrictive, is in the sign of Leo, which rules the heart. Okay, so I really like to take care of my heart. Now, that's in part why I wear a ruby, because a ruby is under the sign of Leo. Leo rules the heart. In fact, the sun rules the heart as well. Okay, so, and obviously not everybody's got a ruby laying around. You can actually get like an opaque ruby for a very, very affordable. What I'm talking about is like a ruby that is, you know, like this is the stones I was going to talk about next. Opaque means it's not clear, like you can't see through it, and you can get an opaque ruby for pretty affordable. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, let's talk about this. Next I want to talk about tiger's iron. This is tiger's eye. Sorry, this one's tiger's eye. This one's tiger's iron. And camera is no way that it's going to be able to pick up the difference. But okay, both of these guys, tiger's eye and tiger's iron, can be great for enhancing the willpower. Not only that, but they're super grounding. They're really, I don't have any earth in my natal chart. I like grounded stones to help me kind of stay a little more connected to earth, that sort of thing, keep myself protected. Tiger's eye and tiger's iron can also be very, very protective stones. And again, those are also, especially the tiger's iron, especially if you just get a little piece. I've got tons of little pieces of this stuff laying around. It's been, you know, it's many, many years of collecting gemstones. so that's why I kind of have a lot of different ones. Okay, and next I was going to talk about, oh, geez, did I get it? Oh, I'm wearing it. Wearing it. Okay, this right here is amber. Amber is a fantastic stone for the heart. In fact, it is said that this is in, I can't remember what text it's from, but it is said that ancient physicians, or in ancient times, physicians would actually prescribe amber to people with heart conditions. Amber can be very protective and also opening up for the heart. Amber is great for all sorts of things. And you can also get some pretty affordable ambers out there as well. But you can always, I think I'm going to leave that there. If there's always, a list of like 20 or 30 stones that resonate well with the sign the moon is transiting through in the description below when you're seeing this here on YouTube. And not only that, but please do not feel like you are missing out on something, or, that if you don't have any of these gemstones. You got to start somewhere. Okay. I'm telling you guys, I've been doing this for a very long time now. And I started out with nothing. As I've told this story before, I literally, probably 2014 or something like that, maybe even before that, I really didn't have any like gemstones to work with. And I do live in the mountains, but I had gone for a little hike around my property and found this just kind of a neat little rock, just to kind of, and it was just, a rock, but it was kind of neat. And I started with that. It sounds so corny. And I totally get it. Some people could laugh their heads off at this, and that's perfectly okay. But I started working with that, manifesting with that, writing down, thank you for aligning me with, say a ruby. Thank you for aligning me with a piece of tiger's eye. That's sort of writing it down and manifesting it and setting the intention, going for it. Okay, so there's that. I think I will leave that there. If you would like to schedule an astrology reading, please do visit erinwageastrology.com. I do hope to hear from some of you. And until next time, namaste to all of you.